Welcome everyone that's live streaming. Last session of the day. Hope this will be a super exciting one. We're covering two really interesting topics, kind of this intersection of NFTs and DeFi. And we have some really cool speakers that are going to tell you a little bit more about themselves, the projects, and their take on what's kind of happening at the moment. So first, just a round of introductions. I'm Ivan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MoonPay. We build payment infrastructure to help projects all over the ecosystem move from fiat to crypto seamlessly, including NFTs. We have Jesse Johnson. Maybe you want to give a quick intro on yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jesse Johnson, co-founder of Aavegotchi. Prior to that, I've been working in NFTs for the past couple of years, starting with Mintable, which was the first no-code solution platform where you could go and turn your images and metadata into tokenized blockchain objects on the Ethereum blockchain. And then the other project we worked on this year, which was really exciting, was the idea of exploring value staked NFTs with a project called BullionX.
Very cool. We also have Jeffrey Zirlin from Axie. I'll just do a quick intro.
Hey everyone, it's Jeff or Jihos from Axie Infinity. I'm the growth lead there. Axie is a fantasy pet game. There's these kind of adorable creatures that you can battle, collect, breed. You can earn different tokens just by playing, such as Dai, KNC, real gold from Digix. We also have a potion that you can earn by playing the game that has a pretty liquid pool of I think 120 ETH on Uniswap. Very excited to explore this conversation. Intersection of DeFi and NFTs has been something that we've been really looking forward to and kind of planning over the last couple of years. So.
Awesome. And we also have Vamsi Alluri, who's from Maker.
Hey everyone, nice to be here. I'm part of the integrations engineering team at MakerDAO. So in my role, I get to closely work with various NFT projects who are planning to integrate DAI. And these days with DAI already being a very established DeFi primitive, I don't really get to do any work. Mostly along with everyone on Twitter, I get to see the public announcement of a project integrating DAI. So that's nice. And also just personally, I've also been part of some early communities on both the DeFi side as well as the NFT side as well. So I've gotten to see the growth right from the early stages of these communities. So yeah.
Awesome. We also have Ben Heidorn from Blockade Games.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben. I'm the CTO for Blockade Games. I'm standing in for Marguerite Dicosel, who's our CEO. We have been making blockchain games for the last 2.5 years now. The title that most people are familiar with is Neon District, and that will be coming out starting next week through the next 3 months. We'll be releasing the entire game in stages on web and mobile. So that's pretty exciting. And then we've also been working, really exploring the DeFi space right now with a project that Marguerite is spearheading called Coin, and we can dive into that a bit later.
Awesome. Cool. So just to kind of kick off, I don't want to butcher this topic to death because I'm sure it's been covered a lot, but I still think NFTs definitely a super emerging area in general. I think it's always important to kind of start with the why. Why does this matter? What does it mean in terms of adoption? So maybe some of you can tell me a little bit more about why NFTs, why you think they're important, what gives them intrinsic value. I'd love to hear your take, and maybe we can start with Jeffrey at Axie Infinity.
Yeah, I think NFTs are a really useful tool to give digital property rights to people. I think we have never truly owned the digital goods, whether that be game assets, digital art, for example. We've never truly owned those and been able to permissionlessly exchange those with anyone, anywhere in the world. I also think that NFTs create a lot of really interesting possibilities around how to coordinate communities, right? I think one of the things that crypto tries to do is coordinate contributions to open source projects, right? So basically NFTs can act as a sort of stake within something like a game or even an artist that you're interested in, and basically give you some incentive to kind of push the project or the community forward.
Cool. And maybe Jesse, who's obviously worked on Aavegotchi, I'd love to kind of hear your take on NFTs and kind of what the next step in their evolution is.
Yeah, I think Jeffrey's just right on there with the digital property ownership. That's like the central point of the non-fungible token, is you want to own the digital objects that previously were just sitting on a third-party platform and also not interoperable. The interoperability, being able to have a game object that may outlive the original intention and take on a life of its own on some other platform because of the composability of these objects. So I think that's the other exciting option, is that some of these objects may end up outliving the games they were originally built for. And the crypto art scene is another great use case, or what we've seen there with the growth and the creativity coming in is just really exciting, because that previously wasn't possible. And now you have artists creating and distributing their art in a very permissionless way. So the one thing I heard you mention was intrinsic value, which is something that I personally have been really obsessed with from the beginning, because I see it, there's two kinds of value props from NFTs. And the first type is more speculative, or it's based on the community backing that value, which I don't know if it's quite intrinsic. But what we're looking at with BillionX and Aavegotchi is having on-chain value, where it's literally provable on-chain, like what kind of value is in it. And by doing that, what we're doing is like creating smart contracts that have escrows, so that you can actually stake specific amounts of ERC20s or other NFTs into a parent NFT. And I think there's a lot of exciting use cases there, and that's where the DeFi aspects can really start to flourish.
Cool. And trying to make this more relatable to, I guess, like an everyday user, I guess, why should someone want to own an NFT? Like what is the driver to, owning your first NFT? If you had to explain to someone on the street that might not be that familiar with crypto in general, what do you think may be some of the reasons you would give them as to why they should be looking at this and why they should be, essentially participating and owning an NFT? And maybe love to hear from you, Jesse, and then we can turn that also.
Oh, sure.
To Ben.
Yeah, for me personally, it was just this idea of, the one that captured my imagination was like the game item that can outlive, the game itself. And you spend so many hours on some of these PC games and RPGs working so hard to earn an item, and then the game has a shelf life of, if you're lucky, 3 to 5 years. But with this, the items can live forever. And I think gamers will recognize the value of that as they're exposed to this idea that magical sword that took 50 hours of gameplay is now yours to keep, and maybe can take on a role in the community itself can rally around and build something special around it outside of the core development team. That's pretty cool.
Awesome. Ben, obviously you probably have some firsthand experience. I think maybe you can tell a little bit more about Blockade Games, which you guys are building at Neon District, and how kind of NFTs are starting to play into your ecosystem.
Absolutely. At Blockade, we've made a bunch of smaller blockchain games just to kind of experiment in the space. One that really applies to what we're talking about right here is a game called MetaBoss, in which we essentially made a text-based MMO where you would have hordes of people coming in, picking one of 4 teams to belong to, and you can just throw all your NFTs into a pile. And all of your NFTs are weighted based on what type of NFT they are. Like an Axie might actually be really good at combat. Neon District might be really good at subterfuge, that sort of thing. So we were able to actually look at people's wallets and pull in all of the Ethereum NFTs that they had, and then weight everything based on that. So not only did you have a reason to play Axie Infinity, but now just for owning a bunch of Axies, you could now go and play a whole other game where you had a whole boost right in the beginning. And that's the thing that I think is really going to resonate with people as they realize why NFTs are valuable, is that we talk about how they're permissionless. We talk about how they're separate from the creator. That's true. But when you think about the internet as just an entire platform that nobody really has access to, but everybody can produce things on. They can, pull data from, they can merge and make apps together with all these things. That's what Ethereum does. Ethereum is essentially a platform where you can create these non-fungible tokens and then anybody can build on them. So when an artist makes a new art piece, you can go into crypto voxels and put it on your wall. You can do the same thing in Decentraland. You can do it in Sandbox. You'll be able to do it in Neon District. And this is something that cannot be done by any other platform because these are all completely different companies that have nothing to do with each other other than the fact that we share a common standard.
And how do you see that playing out, I guess, open versus closed in terms of, you have traditional publishers that in some ways you might say they have kind of almost like a monopoly in terms of the experience for a user versus kind of here where you kind of have this interoperability of these NFTs across different games. How do you think kind of traditional publishers are going to react to this, and how do you kind of see kind of a couple of years out from now how this might evolve?
We have already kind of seen the way that traditional publishers are going to approach this, and it's no surprise to us at all. They are applying all of their copyright laws to assets that belong on a permissionless blockchain, which of course doesn't quite work. So for all of us here who are developing from scratch on the blockchain, we are approaching this from the idea that everything is open. Like CryptoKitties started this whole thing by making their own permission, basically, where anybody could take CryptoKitty and do pretty much whatever they wanted with it within reason. And that's the sort of approach that I think publishers are going to have to take to really fully embrace the idea of an open blockchain. But when you have NBA coming on, for example, and they have limitations to what can be done with their product, like there's still value in owning the NFT. There are still things you can do with it. You can still trade it. You can still put it out on the market. Like there's all these benefits to it, but there's a whole other side of it that you're not able to explore if you don't give people the freedom to do with it what they want based on the fact that you made this NFT that has value.
Makes a lot of sense. You mentioned CryptoKitties. Maybe Vamsi, you could talk about some of how DeFi is playing in. There's some really cool things happening with DAI and interactivity with NFTs. Would love to hear kind of your take and from kind of makers' perspective and some of the things that are happening with these NFTs, how they're being used in the context of DeFi.
Yeah, so I guess like one way to think about is DAI is just like what DAI enables like in various NFT ecosystems is like is a very stable store of value that's globally accessible. We've done the groundwork integrating DAI with like various exchanges around the world, various wallets to make it easier for NFT communities or just anyone in general to like expose their users to DAI. So we are taking care of that last mile, and then that makes it easier for users to come on board, and then it also improves the user experience that makes it better. So that's the current like just using DAI as a currency. But I think in the future, like one area that I see DeFi and NFT ecosystems like really be synergistic is exploring like liquidity or understanding like how liquidity works. So currently, like ERC20 tokens to a certain extent are already liquid on exchanges, right? So it's easy to go sell, like, and if somebody has ETH, like they can sell it on the market. So something like vaults that we offer, where users can lock collateral and generate DAI to unlock some of the liquidity of their assets without having to sell ownership, is compelling for ERC20s, but I think it'll be that much more compelling for NFTs, like probably like, I don't know, much more. And this is because usually with an NFT collection, everybody shares a personal bond. So it's hard, like, I mean, it's easier for me to sell Ether, like when I need, I don't know, when I want to unlock some liquidity, but it'll be that much harder for me to sell, I don't know, something like my CryptoPunks. So I'd rather just hold on to them for a longer duration. So this is where I think DeFi can step in and help unlock liquidity. So just making it easier for some of these assets to go become collateral inside vaults, and then just the ability to give like owners of these assets the ability for them to generate DAI for their short-term liquidity needs. Then maybe they use the DAI for a couple of months, come back, pay a small stability fee, and then they get their entire collection back. So just that mechanism, I think is a force multiplier across the NFT ecosystem. And this convergence is, I think, something that we all should explore over the next few months and years.
Cool. So I think where we are now, we've got 9.7 billion roughly as I last checked, kind of locked up in DeFi. What do we think in terms of the drivers that are going to bring this into NFTs? I think obviously making it more real, connecting to DAI and trying to see things in dollar terms. Obviously that's very interesting. I'd love to hear your perspective, Jeffrey, I guess in terms of Axie Infinity, some of the stuff, I think you said, I predicted that maybe this is something that we were prepared for, that, there was going to be this crossover of this kind of DeFi community and capital into NFTs. Yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective, Jeffrey, on how you see that playing out.
Yeah, definitely. So when we think about Ethereum, we talk a lot about building blocks, right? And NFT projects, blockchain games, we benefit a lot from some of the core kind of DeFi infrastructure that exists on Ethereum. For example, Uniswap. Because Uniswap exists, our players were able to just kind of, start supplying liquidity for this potion that happened, that's earnable through our game. Because there's a liquidity pool, there is basically allowing or enabling a kind of basic income or a minimum wage just for playing Axie, which I think is around 5 to 7 times the minimum wage in places in certain regions in the Philippines. So yeah, being able to connect and access things like Uniswap was key. Obviously, we also recently had the Uniswap drop, so every single Axie player, got thousands of dollars per wallet, just because they've been playing Axie, and because playing Axie means eventually using Uniswap at some point. So I think things like that are really important. I'm also very interested in the idea of using NFTs as collateral. I've done an experiment where I've lent out around 100 ETH or so to people accepting their Axies as collateral. I've been doing that for about a year, and we're now starting to see trustless ways of doing that. So there's a project called NFTxDefi, which has actually created a trustless way to do that. It's great, gaining some traction. So yeah, I think the crossovers between NFT and DeFi kind of enable things that wouldn't be possible, just playing with a traditional piece of art or by playing a traditional game.
And I guess more specifically, what do you think are going to be the biggest use cases that people are going to use inside of Axie, at least for now, in terms of the DeFi? There's obviously a lot of different ways that you can see people interacting with Axie, as you mentioned, but is there one in particular that you think is going to bring more and more people into Axie as a result of kind of interacting and having some of these DeFi properties? What is it specifically that you think is going to be the biggest?
So I think one of the interesting things that DeFi has introduced to the world is the idea of a governance token, a token that has certain inherent kind of properties such as access to fees, governance. You might stake it for access to be able to actually claim those rewards. I believe that when NFT projects start creating these types of governance tokens and allowing people to earn those tokens just by interacting with the product, that's how we incentivize adoption and get a lot of people actually using these things, because there's a concrete benefit. It's I can play this game and earn part of the game just by playing. And that's how you basically scale this play to earn meme. So I think I first started getting into DeFi because I was interested in token design. A lot of people, when they started playing Axie, they're like, how can I earn the Axie token? And we didn't really understand. It's there is no Axie token, but everyone just for some reason was fixated in the idea of playing a game, earning an ERC20, and basically making money that way. So after that, I started doing research into projects like Synthetics, Kyber, MakerDAO, that were kind of pioneers in actual interesting token design that kind of accrue value to the token. So I think for me that is the most interesting thing that DeFi has added, and I think we'll start to see NFT projects creating governance tokens that can basically be used to blitzscale their networks.
And Jesse, I think it's really interesting, given that in terms of the way that this project you've built Aavegotchi was constructed, was very much with thinking about DeFi from kind of the outset, maybe you can explain how kind of DeFi primitives interact inside of Aavegotchi. Maybe kind of explain how that works for people that are kind of new to the project. Love to hear what you've seen kind of so far and how kind of all these DeFi components have come together for your project.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience in playing with the money Legos. So there's so many parts moving and being put together, and it's just arranging them in the right way that rewards the community and also makes it fun to play at the same time. So mentioning what Jeffrey just said about DAO governance tokens, that was like a major part of where we started with it. And so there's this idea that by getting in and joining the community and contributing value, either creating, everything's pixel art with Aavegotchi. So you can create wearables, much like the metaverse style games, people are going to be able to contribute and then earn from that. And so we wanted to align the incentives, and DeFi makes that really possible. The way the game pretty much works is the first part is the idea of these collateralized NFTs, which is quite DeFi in itself. So to summon an Aavegotchi, you have to stake a certain amount of Aave A tokens inside the Aavegotchi of your choice. So right off the bat, you're interacting with Aave's ecosystem, and then you're also like using our smart contracts to create the Aavegotchi NFT of your choice. So it's a cute little pixelated ghost. It comes through the portal, and you stake to generate it into the realm. And then from there, he has all these unique personality traits. And this Aavegotchi is like, basically becomes an avatar for the Web3. It's like, if Web3 is one big MMORPG, then this Aavegotchi has the potential to grow and evolve as you use it throughout not just the Aavegotchi core games, but as they plug in and interoperate with other games and platforms, other dApps. So our ultimate goal is to take DeFi, which is quite complex. You were asking about like, how do we take DeFi to the next level? I think Aavegotchi can be a big part because it's extremely simplistic in its presentation. And we're also quite obsessed with an intuitive experience. So hopefully we can make DeFi less intimidating and kind of act as a onboarding ramp for people to experiment with some of these tokens, learn about the Aave tokens and staking and some of these other mechanisms that DAO governance, all these things are at play, but they're kind of hidden under a very comfortable layer of pixelated gamification.
Very cool. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely tailored. You know, your entire experience is tailored to that existing DeFi audience versus probably. You know, I guess how do you see that balancing against that in terms of bringing more, you know, I guess non-DeFi users in? Is it? Yeah, how do you see that for, you know, I guess an everyday person? It might be really complex to basically get up and running with an Aavegotchi. Like, how do you get them there? I mean, I guess if you wanted to show your mom how to basically get an Aavegotchi, like, how would you explain that to her? And how do you see kind of essentially crypto native people interacting with Aavegotchi?
Yeah, I think it will change over time, but like right now our messaging is definitely for the DeFi audience and the NFT audience that already exists. But as we get towards mainnet launch, I think you'll see that the actual experience is going to be one of the more intuitive and friendly type of experiences out there in terms of just, yes, you're going to probably need to know how to use Uniswap. You're going to need to be able to swap out tokens or acquire some ghost tokens and some A tokens. But beyond that, the gas fees are going to be, you know, right now NFTs are kind of at a roadblock with the situation on the Ethereum network. So we're actively looking to launch as an L2 layer 2 ready mainnet launch, where you'll be able to keep your Aavegotchis on the Ethereum network, or you'll be able to take them and put them on somewhere like whether it's Matic or XDAI or whatever we end up working with. But we're going to make sure, like, basically you're going to barely know the gas fees are there. And it's going to be just like very, very natural in the sense of push a button and you switch out the wearable and you don't wait 60 seconds and pay $5 to do that. So those are kind of the things that we have to tackle right from the get-go. And then the mini games themselves will feel very much like we'll have a street fighter with Aavegotchis, we'll have a horse race with Aavegotchis, and those will feel very much like what everyone outside of DeFi is already familiar with. And putting all that together, I think will first satisfy the DeFi and crypto community, but it'll also grow DeFi on the margins. That's our goal.
Super cool. Hey, Ben, I think it'd be cool to hear your perspective from kind of Blockade Games and what you've been doing with Neon District. Obviously, I think a lot has changed probably just over the last year. And I think one of the things that Jesse mentioned, which I think is something we should talk about, is obviously one of the biggest barriers is the fact that we have these really heavy transaction fees associated and congestion in terms of being able to run it at a high performance level with hundreds of thousands and millions of users, right? We're not quite there yet. I guess, how are you tackling that, and how are you thinking about that at Blockade and Neon District?
Absolutely. We've been thinking about this since day one, pretty much. Back in March of 2018, we had teamed up with the Loom Network, now defunct, to allow us to scale out our game, because we wanted to make a game for the mainstream audience first. And that's always been the approach. So we were able to launch a game called Plasma Bears early last year. And that proved out the entire play to earn, free to play thesis for blockchain. So people were actively using blockchain assets, but they had no idea they were doing that. So the wallet was created on their behalf, and they would go and collect bears and trade them, and it was quite addictive. And we actually got our grandparents and small children playing the game and getting emails and very, very nice letters from people. So that's the approach that we take with Neon District. Is the entire game runs on is a hybrid of server and layer 2. We're running on Matic. Everything is completely set up and ready to go, and by next week, people will be able to craft characters and then trade them across Matic to Ethereum, and then have like a fully equipped character up on OpenSea. So we're trying to bridge the gap where there are people who want to collect and trade and sell these incredibly valuable assets, but in the model that we have, the majority of our assets are not going to be that valuable. And you shouldn't have to pay a whole lot of money, or really any at all, in order to trade them around, to collect them. So that's why everything starts on a layer 2. We have the ability for people to transfer over to Ethereum mainnet, where a $5 gas fee might be worth, if you have like a $1,000 character that somebody wants, that's totally worth it. So we've been basically building this out from the get-go.
And I guess, how do you think about it? I guess from a user's perspective, someone really, I guess, playing these NFT games with the intention to I guess make money. I guess, how do you think about that in terms of an attraction point inside of Neon District and some of these games that you're working on?
That's also built into the core thesis of the game. Nobody should have to feel pressured to have to pay to win. Nobody should have to feel pressured to sell their assets if they don't want to. We're just trying to make a really good game. And if somebody spends, 300 hours playing our game, and they happen to have the rarest items in the game, and then they decide, well, I want to buy a whole bunch of loot boxes, they could take something they have a duplicate of, go sell it, and that's how they get introduced into Ethereum. So we are kind of, while a Trojan horse has a negative connotation in a lot of ways, that's essentially what we're doing. We are surprising people with this entire backend and this gateway to cryptocurrency, but you don't need to have any knowledge of it to even begin playing the game in the first place.
Got it. No, I think it makes lots of sense. I guess Vamsi at Maker, and kind of the objectives that you have in terms of increasing adoption. I guess what are your thoughts in terms of some of the barriers around scalability of the network, and how do you see that playing into kind of your strategy to have more interactivity with NFTs?
Yeah, so I think scalability is not that big of a barrier for Maker, in the sense that there are two sides to the platform. Like, users either interact with vaults, and on the other side, users transact and DAI. So for DAI, I think with very little involvement from the foundation itself, we already see DAI available on pretty much every single layer 2 network, and sometimes even other blockchains. So that's already there by default, and it's a problem. Like, it's not a problem anymore for users. So they can like move their DAI to a layer 2 network and then continue to use it there. On the vault side, scalability is not that big of a challenge, because the volumes that usually that most of the vaults work with are usually pretty high. Sometimes we even see vaults with tens of millions of dollars worth of collateral, and then they're generating like 10 million, 20 million DAI in one go. So the sizes that usually users who work with, or who find that attractive, who find vaults attractive, are like lower, and it's not a big challenge for them. And recently, I mean, we've also seen like yield farming strategies that bring the barrier down, like on the wallet side, even lower, that lets users contribute a little bit of ether to an automated strategy. So that they can see what they don't have to spend $100 on opening up a vault and just to get started. So in that sense, we are still not seeing like too many issues on our side. Yeah, and like with DAI just available everywhere on other L2 solutions, it's all, yeah, users are already able to use it.
And Vamsi, I know you're not a lawyer, but I'd love to hear, I guess, from a regulatory perspective, how you start to think about some of these things and kind of interacting with kind of this dollar stabilized currency inside of these games, and what that means when you've essentially opened that up. I guess love to hear your thoughts in terms of that being a barrier, whether that's going to, how do we wrestle that in terms of bringing more people into NFTs and more people into these games.
Yeah, so like from the foundation, I don't think I'd be able to comment that much, because there's like our role in a sense in the protocol is like very limited. Even from day one, like Maker always launched as a fully decentralized platform. Like so from day one, even back in 2017, it launched with like Maker holders, the ability for them to vote, take active decisions, change like things like governance parameters like stability fees. Obviously, the first version was only able to onboard Ether as collateral, and now after multi-collateral DAI, Maker holders are able to just, like through the use of governance forums and other mechanisms like weekly calls, they're able to just on their own onboard collateral, take active decisions, manage the peg. So all of that is on the community side, and the community is able to actively like take a lot of these decisions by their own. So yeah, it's hard to also comment on like just regulations in general, because DAI is accessible pretty much from every place on earth, and it's fully decentralized. There are no whitelists in place in the protocol. It's fully governed by a decentralized group of voters, transparently on chain. So yeah, so with that in place, it's yeah, just that decentralized nature gives it many benefits.
And I get that. I think that's really helpful. I think, Jeffrey, I guess at Axie, I guess what is your view on kind of the regulatory component? Is there certain countries where you feel like you're, I guess, in terms of the legal opinions or things in terms of areas that you can operate, you can't operate? I guess what's your perspective of that in general, whether that has created any friction and more people accessing, the Axie Infinity game?
Yeah, so right now, anyone with internet and anyone with internet or MetaMask can interact with Axie. In terms of regulatory things, that's not really kind of what I look into. But all I know is that people all over the world play Axie. There are only a couple of places in the world that we don't have players, a couple of countries in Africa and Greenland. Other than that, we have Axie players in every single country.
I guess just in general, in terms of adoption, yeah, I think we were talking earlier, I guess, are there kind of certain things that have surprised you in terms of where the user base has been coming from? What are some of the insights you've seen in terms of who are the people and where are they coming from that are playing Axie?
Yeah, so I think the Axie community is an incredible mix of different archetypes of people, right? They're the high-end Axie collectors, they're the competitive PvP battlers, and they're the farmers who are looking to earn $4 to $10 an hour just by playing. I think that geographic zone does tend to kind of correlate with the archetype of player or network participant. So Americans and Europeans tend to be the collectors, and also the kind of high-end the PvP battlers as well, and then the lower income countries tend to be the farmers. But I think everyone also happens to be like a battler. So yeah, I think one thing that's surprising is that we've actually had our greatest growth spurt during the time of highest Ethereum gas, right? So I think that really speaks to why is that, right? So it's because it was during this time that the kind of ability to earn by playing Axie increased because of a very deep liquidity pool with the SLP, or the small love potions, on Uniswap. So I think, so right now we're the number one NFT application by usage. We have 4,000 monthly active users, and I believe that's because we're very transparent about the benefits of playing the game. People are telling their friends and family who know nothing about cryptocurrency that, hey, you can play this cute game and maybe make a little side income. So I think it's very clear. It's very important to have clear benefits that kind of are very easily digestible to everyday users. And so I think play to earn, that meme is it just lights up and makes sense to a lot of people. And we're living in an increasingly digital world. The nature of work needs to change. What we believe as the value creating behavior needs to be reappraised. In the future, just playing a game, talking in a Discord, being a positive and helpful community member, those are all things that add value to a network and are going to be increasingly seen as means of making a living.
And how do you see kind of like the dynamic of airdrops? Do you see more and more games looking to kind of issue airdrops to users? Is that, I guess, what's your view on that? And I think it also kind of, there's the balance, as you mentioned, having your own kind of in-game token versus kind of the NFT itself. I guess, maybe some just like high level comments around how you guys may have thought about that.
Yeah, definitely. So we saw the rise of airdrops during 2017. The ICO era is very kind of like untargeted, just giveaways. I think that games offer a really interesting way to get your tokens into the hands of people who are interested in using these kinds of applications. That's why MakerDAO is giving us DAI to give to our community, because they know that a lot of our players, they don't know anything about DeFi, but once they own some DAI, they might do some research on it. And we actually incentivized people with a rare NFT just to open CDPs last year. And that was actually a life-changing for many of our players, because they were introduced to the idea of DeFi 1 year, about a year and a half ago. And, many of them invested, based on a lot of the things that they learned from, being introduced to DeFi through Axie. So I think, so I think this idea of airdropping tokens, using games as a token distribution model, I think it's going to be increasingly used in the future. And so games are going to start to distribute their own tokens, the token that represents a true stake in their game through their games, but they're also going to be platforms to distribute the tokens of other projects that want to reach real users. And I think, Axie has been a pioneer, and will be a pioneer, and it has been a pioneer in those trends.
Yeah, your early adopters really got rewarded. It's like, and nobody could have predicted, but by having these tokens or SLP in place, then as the liquidity grows and as the market grows and the game grows, everybody who came in to play the game ends up having a literal stake in the game's success. So I think that's the most amazing part about introducing a token into your NFT project or your game.
I think you mentioned earlier the idea of aligning incentives, right? So I think fundamentally, at my core thesis is that with traditional games, the incentives between the game developers and the community are not aligned. That may be okay because the games are fun, but I think we can start to think about games as something more. I think playing games should be seen as a source of work and income. And so when you basically align the incentives between the core developers and the community, you start to see some really crazy and interesting behaviors where people will, become fanatic evangelists, get tattoos, create teams, create musicals. So I get astounded by the things that the Axie community does on a daily basis. And I think it really has to do with the special relationship between the core team and the community that exists because of the unique incentives that NFTs allow.
And I think you mentioned something super interesting with kind of the DAI airdrop component. I guess, Vamsi, I'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of getting DAI into the hands of more people and how you're seeing your strategy play out. with these games like Axie?
Yeah, so one, we've been like very like involved in like for quite some time in the NFT ecosystem, and along with this, we also have something called a DAI gaming initiative. So where we actively incentivize game developers to think more about using DeFi in their game slash ecosystems. So that way, I guess there's like mutual benefits, right? So there's benefits like for DAI being exposed to a wider user base, like Gio mentioned, and also like just using a stable store of value is beneficial to the communities as well. So we have the DAI gaming initiative. We've kicked that off like earlier this year, and that had some good reception. So where we basically, let's say a game, there are a couple different tiers. One, integrating just DAI, two, integrating the DAI savings rate, three, doing something with vaults. So based on like the integration, we pay out a grant. So that has been successful, just integrating DAI, like I already mentioned. Yeah, so these have been like mostly the initiatives that we worked on.
Very cool. And then I guess, Jesse, I guess I'd love to learn your thoughts in terms of, you mentioned lots of different use cases of how DeFi is being interacted with inside of Aavegotchi. I guess, which one are you the most bullish on? I guess, and how do you see that evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, kind of thinking about this play to earn economy that's really we're at the forefront of. I think that there's going to be multiple layers the way we've designed Aavegotchi. You can play very casually. You can play as a collector. Because the delivery mechanism for these Aavegotchi is a portal. So the NFT starts as a portal that you have to open, just like a pack of cards. So it's more equivalent to that. And so when you open it, you have 10 Aavegotchi to choose from, but you can only summon one. So what I think will end up happening is some people there's only 10,000 portals in the first haunt. And so some people will just want to get the portals and not necessarily open them. And it's already an NFT. They can take it to the OpenSea market, or they can hold it for a later date. Other people will want to open them, but not necessarily choose which ghost to summon. And then other people, most people we hope, will probably summon a ghost, summon an Aavegotchi, and then play, train, and vote with their Aavegotchi in the DAO. So that there's all these different layers of how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. And the deeper you go, the more you will be rewarded in terms of getting that ghost token. So there's something called rarity farming. If you're interacting with your Aavegotchi every day, you're able to exchange your XP points to actually tweak his personality traits. And kind of just like us humans, there's some things we're born with we can't change. And then the Aavegotchi has certain things that he can change over time by being interacted with. And so if his kinship score is high, if he's playing games and voting and being active in the wallet, then you're going to be able to play to earn in some sense with that. So I think those are all really exciting. I think it's the play to earn. Ultimately, that's the most exciting way. And there's just multiple ways to do that: by being a collector, by being a player, or even just being active in our Discord. You know, Jeffrey mentioned that even in this new economy, any way you contribute value to the network can be valuable and should be recognized. Right now, what we're doing before the game launches, and I think is really cool, is in our Discord, we opened up this idea of missions, Aavegotchi agents. And if you want to be an agent, every week we put out something that engages the community and asks them to do something very simple and do a task, and then come back and prove it to us. And then our volunteer army will actually upgrade your levels, and you earn badges as you interact in our community. For example, the first one was reading the light paper. About a month ago, we published the light paper, and we just open sourced as a Gmail, as a Google Doc, and let everybody go in and leave a comment and leave some feedback. Because we were writing the white paper at the time, and we were like, this is actually extremely valuable for us. And so now all those people will be going in with their badges, and they'll be getting airdrops, so to speak, certain wearables based on their badge levels and what they're doing in the Discord today. So I think that's a really cool example of how anybody can contribute even now. And the more we can do to align and recognize those contributions, the tokens make that possible. So pretty excited for the future of NFTs for sure, and some of the unique ways people here are coming up with to put them to use.
And Ben, have you seen some of the same dynamics play out? Would you agree generally with Jesse, with how you see it kind of playing out?
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, Jesse, everything you talked about sounds awesome, by the way. Like, I'm going to go and get some now, get some portals. So one thing that we're doing right now is Marguerite has created a new coin after her pseudonym, which is Coin Artist. And because it is not necessarily a Blockade product, but it's still something that we're working on as a team, everything that she's done over the last 7 years roughly all kind of builds up to this token where now people have been, fans of hers for a very long time, can now actually have a stake in the community as well. So not only does that mean that you are like a contributing member of the community, you can earn rewards based on that. We can also tie in everything that we're making based on it. So now you can have this token where, if, for example, you stake it or you are a liquidity provider, you can now get non-fungible tokens from Neon District. We can now find ways to let you take the assets in Neon District and stake those as well if you have a very rare item, and then also get more NFTs. So, sorry, kind of lost my train of thought there for a second.
You're talking about being able to use essentially how I guess this new token that's being created by.
Yep. I want to tie it back to the original question. Can you repeat the original question one more time?
It was essentially just trying to explain some of the dynamics of what's kind of the DeFi function that gets people excited about using the NFT. And Jesse was talking about the play to earn component. And you were just describing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So to also kind of expand on that, some of the tokens that we had dropped over the last 3 years, one of them is a trophy that was part of the first project that we had done under Blockade Games. There are only 75 of them right now, and we've been minting them very slowly over the past 3 years. Just holding them, for example, gave you an airdrop of the coin token. And then beyond that, we had also done, early last year, we had also done the Neon District Season 0 Fatter sale. And in that, we let anybody sign up to get a key. And if you got a key, if you went and purchased one, you were then able to actually participate in being a founder for Neon District. You got to play the game for anybody else. And also, if you had a key of a certain rarity, you also, once again, got this airdrop. So because there are so very few of these items, you can now take these incredibly rare NFTs that have been in existence for a few years now and will be in existence and have value the rest of our time working at this company. You'll be able to take like one of 20 keys, lock it up, stake it, and then for the value of taking that off the market, you can now get more value from it. So there's a lot of interplay between not just staking, a fungible token to get more fungible tokens than non-fungible tokens, but you can stake the non-fungible token as well, and there's all this interplay in between. So that's really what we're experimenting with right now, with her coin token as well as every project that we're doing under Blockade.
Awesome. Guys, I know we have to wrap this up relatively soon. I've got one final question for everyone. You had to, I guess, what is your favorite NFT that you hold and why might other people be interested in that NFT? Maybe we can start with you, Jesse.
Yeah,
it can't be your own project. It can't be your own project is the other condition.
If I have to do that, then I will say that, because I was going to be honest, but if I had to do that, my favorite would have to be my parcel in Crypto Voxels. You can come by 4 Jumbo Way, and I think it's just great. It's great because I didn't build on it. I was able to open up rights to build on my parcel, share that to another wallet. And so WizardX, one of the awesome crypto artists in the scene, he's really good with those kind of block art type of mega voxel type of setups. And he just built an amazing headquarters for our BullionX project on this parcel. And yeah, 4 Jumbo Way, come on by anytime.
Awesome. And to take it one step further, how could you use that parcel inside, like how would that interact with DeFi? What's a good example of how you could use that parcel?
Well, with DeFi, that's a tricky question. I guess it's technically, DeFi is kind of this vague term. So, I mean, I'm not able to
let's just say,
yeah,
I guess, what could you use it for?
What we're using it for is to display all our different NFTs. So all the different, it's like a gallery. So we have basically a display case there. And the original one I was going to mention is we did a partnership with Axie Infinity, and we had a really beautiful gold coin designed for Axie Infinity earlier this year. And so that's displayed there right now. And that would be my, I guess, my second favorite NFT. Yeah, NFTx is an amazing, that's probably my favorite platform right now as far as intriguing platforms out there. They shard your NFT, and it's another way to introduce liquidity. So it's very fascinating what they're doing. You could totally put your NFT there and do that.
Vamsi, what's your favorite NFT and kind of why?
Jesse stole my answer because it's CryptoVoxel's Parcel as well. And this is in the Moon District, but specifically what it has is it has something called a dye house. We collaborated with a designer, with another like CryptoVoxel designer to build this thing called dye house. So it's a big building, virtual building. And in general, like my sense is it's not fully developed. It's in like the building is there, but we still have to actively develop it more. But usually for a diverse community like MakerDAO, it's tough to have a sense of location because everybody is like spread out. I don't think everybody could pick a time slot in their calendars to join the same, I don't know, same like virtual meeting. So this could give them a sense of location, like hop in and then virtually mingle with other like-minded people. It's going to be a permanent location. You can come in anytime, talk to other people. So there's that social aspect, as well as like experience the content that's curated in the virtual environment itself. So yeah, that's my favorite NFT.
Awesome. For you, Ben?
I have two, and they're both personal. So the first one was made by our lead artist, Diego. It is not a Blockade product. It is one of his own personal tokens. He's a very good artist. You've more than likely seen some of his art out there. Recently, he did a Uniswap portrait that was purchased by Heidorn, which is really cool. So he actually did a painting that he calls Repentance, and he gifted it to me for helping him set up his shop. So I really love that piece. And then back in January for my birthday, one of my teammates minted a token of just the cake from Portal and sent it to me as an engine token. So
very cool. And finally, Jeffrey.
Oh, muted.
You still there?
I think Jeffrey's
muted.
muted.
I muted myself. I muted myself because my dog was barking. Sorry. Anyways, so other than Axies, I have a very emotional kind of soft spot for CryptoKitties. That's how I got introduced to the space, the concept of non-fungible tokens. I was a very intense CryptoKitty breeder. So I actually, I made around 200 ETH, I think, playing CryptoKitties. So one of the NFTs or one of my kitties that I have a really strong relationship with, I guess, is I bred the first dog cat. So there was a special promotion where basically, there were 88 dogs. It was Year of the Dog that year, I guess 2018. And I think I ended up selling it for 38 ETH. But yeah, that's my favorite NFT. And it still says that I was the one who bred it. And yeah, so I always say like there are millions of CryptoKitties, but there's only 88 dog cats, and I bred the first one. So.
Very cool. I'm gonna shout out my favorite NFTs. I'm gonna shout out Dapper. So I was in the Cheese Wizard competition, but unfortunately the molds got to me. I didn't play in time, even though I was an undefeated Cheese Wizard. I picked up kind of a random one, but unfortunately didn't make it through the whole tournament. I think someone ended up winning a pretty considerable amount of ETH. I think it was a couple 100K, whoever ended up winning that, 100K in dollar terms. But unfortunately the mold got to me, so never made it further. So I'm hoping I can use that somewhere else. We'll have to see. And then I would say my second favorite NFT is, I'm shouting out NBA Top Shot. It's not in the same traditional sense as other NFTs in terms of it being open quite yet, but I ended up picking up a Spencer Dinwiddie. I think it was I'm losing the name of the first pack. It's Cosmic Pack, Spencer Dinwiddie, which is I think one of the first original packs that ever came out. Just thought it was cool to pick up a basketball player that's pro crypto. So we'll see what ends up happening there. thanks everyone. This is really cool. Thanks for sharing more about your projects. I'm sure you'll be able to plug them more, and more people are going to find out about them. I think you're definitely in the front of another wave of excitement for NFTs.